The Assembly will come to order. We'll go to order of business 4, reports of standing committees.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred Assembly Bill 106, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to put the same back with the recommendation do pass. Nagy Carlton, Chair.
Assemblywoman Bedines-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May we go to order business 8?
Order of business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that all rules be suspended. Readings so far have considered second reading, and Assembly Bill 106 be declared an emergency measure under the Constitution and placed on the third reading for final passage.
Assemblywoman Bedines-Thompson has moved that the rules be suspended. Reading so far considered second reading. Rules further suspended and Assembly Bill 106 be declared an emergency measure under the Constitution and placed on third reading and final passage. Remarks? Assemblywoman Bedines-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we all have an interest in getting these dollars out the door and to the ground as fast as we can.
Any further remarks on that motion? Assemblyman Roberts. Oh, okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We go to order business 12, general file and third reading.
Assembly Bill 106, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act making an appropriation for the Office of Economic Development for the provision of grants to certain entities impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and providing other amounts for relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are there amendments to Section 1?
There are none.
Are there amendments to Section to the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 106. You know, Nevada businesses have been devastated by this pandemic over the last year, and this bill is timely in providing the needed support to get a lot of these folks back on their feet. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to vote in support as well.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of AB 106. Thousands of small businesses and nonprofits are still reeling from the financial implications of this pandemic. This $50 million in additional PETS funding will provide aid to thousands of small nonprofits and small businesses and the families that depend on them for a paycheck and the dignity that comes with it. Small businesses like the Periwinkle Group, a Black female-owned strategic communications and marketing business who has also been assisting families in connecting with services during this pandemic. And she is also one of my most active and community-focused constituents. The Cosmetology Institute of Las Vegas, who struggles to stay afloat as they help people who were displaced transition into and see themselves in a new, rewarding career in the beauty industry. The Urban Chamber of Commerce, who has been coordinating virtual town halls and seminars to help countless numbers of small businesses complete the application process, like Miss Trina Giles, owner of Grits Cafe. And last but not least, the Empower Cafe, a small business whose business model is providing employment, training, and job opportunities for people with different abilities. They may not have been able to secure employment elsewhere. These businesses are not just brick and mortars, they are people. People who make up a community, who make up a city, who make up our state. By providing direct relief to businesses owners and nonprofits, we can help our community businesses keep their rent paid, lights on, and workers on the payroll. We all read the stories and see it on the news. The communities of colors have been hit especially hard by COVID-19. These are not just statistics. These are people. Our Black and brown families are in crisis. We need to do all that we can to help lead them through this. This program will be the help that they need, and I encourage my colleagues to pass AB 106.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of AB 106. Mr. Speaker and members of this body, small businesses have taken the brunt of this health and economic pandemic. We had the fastest growing economy in the country prior to this mandatory shutdown. Our understanding of the virus has come a long way, And since the initial 2 weeks when our state and nation shut down to slow the spread and flatten the curve nearly a year ago, it is necessary to keep our state open for business and to get unemployed or underemployed people back to work. We must safeguard livelihoods by using our knowledge of spread mitigation and workforce vaccine integration. I am supportive of the $50 million in funding to help our small businesses who have been impacted by our blanket restrictions since last spring. I encourage the governor to loosen restrictions upon them up and allow people to make a living. All Nevada businesses are essential, and we will continue to promote pro-business legislation that will lead Nevada's comeback back. Thank you, and I do indeed encourage my fellow members to support AB 106.
Thank you. Lastly, Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 106. Nevada families and small businesses and nonprofits are looking to us for help through this crisis. This week, it was a good week, Mr. Speaker. We were able to take the first steps in delivering for them. This week, we were able to provide Nevada families with $124 million more in rental assistance and small businesses and nonprofits with this additional $50 million in grants to help them keep their doors open. I know there's much more work to do to help Nevadans recover from the impacts of COVID-19, but the work we did this week makes a real difference in the lives of our friends and our neighbors, our fellow Nevadans. I know this because I've seen it. When the closure happened and the small restaurants needed to close, they didn't just think of themselves. They reached out to food banks and food pantries to make sure that the food that was in their pantries and in their fridges and freezers went to those places and even delivered it to some of the food banks and food pantries. They were facing a crisis, but yet they thought of those people who were going to be hungry in the near future when the Strip closed down. So I want to thank them especially for thinking of all of us and making sure our constituents were fed. The COVID-19 pandemic has put much more strain on a lot of the services provided by nonprofits in our communities. It's critical that these organizations stay open, and the additional $50 million through this PETS grant will do just that. I say this a lot, but I'll say it again. I've been in this building a long time. This grant is the largest small business and nonprofit assistance program I've seen in my career here. Supporting this bill is going to be one of the easiest votes that I think I'll ever cast in this building in the 22 years. And Mr. Speaker, I think the one thing that makes my heart glad is knowing that we are all in this together, and we're going to get out of this together.
Thank you. There being no further remarks, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Yeah, can we go to Order Business 1? Assemblywoman Medina-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under Order Business 1, may the record reflect that Assemblywoman Krausner is absent.
Records shall so reflect. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 41 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. Bill has received a constitutional majority. Declare passed. Assembly Bill 106 will be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Now go to Order Business 15. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the 80th legislative session, the members of the Nevada Black Legislative Caucus hosted the first annual Black History Summit in room 3100. It was the first time the rich and varied contributions of African Americans to our country, our state, and this legislative body were recognized and celebrated in this building. Those of you that were here in 2019 may remember the hallways being filled with constituents from all over our beautiful state, joining us in the celebration. Why this day is important? It's important because as legislators, we create policy that has a direct impact on communities that we may not often come in contact with or may not truly understand. As elected leaders, we must do all that we can, our due diligence, to learn as much as we can about each other and every issue that the communities that are facing, how it directly impacts them. By sharing our history with you, the history that is not always taught in our classrooms, you may discover that we have much more in common than we do apart. So we ask that you join us tomorrow as we have the 3rd annual Black History Summit. This year will be a virtual event in the spirit of this session. You should have received this invitation in your office yesterday. We invite you to join us virtually at 12 tomorrow to celebrate the Black history, not only in this building, but in our very diverse country.
Thank you. Any other order of business 15s? Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seeing no other business before us, I would move that the Assembly adjourn until Thursday, February 11th at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.